Good morning, everyone. My name is Ron Moore, and this is the 10 o'clock hour of Tuesday, September 20th, 2020, and this is the quarterly standard meeting for the Westfield Building Corporation. I'd like to call for a quorum. John, please.
Ron Moore.
Here.
Larry Colorino.
Here.
Steve Latour.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, John. Okay, the last meeting, we have minutes from the June 28th meeting. Has everyone reviewed these minutes? Are there any questions? None. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. I'll second.
So moved by Larry Clarino and seconded by Steve Latour. All in favor, John?
Steve Latour.
Here, or yes? Aye.
Both. Okay. Larry Colorino.
Yes.
Ron Moore.
Yes. Next comes the updates for the Station 21 project. Would like to have John Rogers go first, if you don't mind, talk about where we are with finances, any bills outstanding, any questions about finances that we should be aware of.
Not at this time. Actually, I just finished up the affidavit for payment for Pay App 10 that was delivered. Got that signed by the mayor this morning. Okay. And at the conclusion of this pay app, we'll have 9.6 million still left to end the.
Okay. So we're roughly at about 10%?
Yeah, that's fair.
Roughly
yes.
10% expended already?
So far.
At this point, yeah.
And,
okay.
and we've not had any significant changes in the schedule as I saw early in the process as far as dollars being
okay. All right.
spent.
Any
okay.
questions, gentlemen? No? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And move on to Chief Roberts. If you can give. Oh, sorry. You snuck in on me. Yeah.
Yeah. Rob
Thanks
Gaylor,
for showing up.
Westfield Fire Department. My meeting got done just in time. I walked in the door. So, Mr. Moore, what are your questions?
Okay, where are we on the timeline from the standpoint of construction?
So as of now, I believe, and Greg can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're right on schedule. We met 2 weeks ago today, actually out there at the site and reviewed the project timeline. From the beginning, I think it was 16 days of lost production due to the weather. However, we are at the beginning phases, so the folks out there have really made headways, in my opinion, on the site. They've got a lot of the steel infrastructure for the administration and the living quarters completed. A lot of the preliminary masonry work for the apparatus bays and the exterior facade and stuff starting to take shape. Last conversation was everything was on track where it should be.
Okay. Any issues that you have with the build at this point?
No issues that I have with the build at this point, no.
Okay. Gentlemen, do you have any questions for Rob?
I might have seen it and it might have been addressed, but I've heard there was a soil issue.
There's a soil stabilization issue that they found out there at the site, and it covers, Greg, is it 80 to 90% of the driveway and the rear parking lot? So yeah, 80 to 90% of the driveway running around the south side of the building and the rear fire department parking lot is going to need some soil stabilization and compaction done.
Okay, well, that's a good question. I actually have questions for them about how this was all determined. So
So it's how did we come to that conclusion?
Yeah,
Greg used a company, Patriot, was the company that come in and did some testing and engineering and come up with those numbers. You'll remember back from the phase one, there were assumptions made in the RFP in the phase one as we were going through this process that soil stabilization was not needed. And that was just based on core samples and everything. And just like any construction project, you have no idea what you're getting into until you actually get out there and start moving dirt, so to speak.
so they did core samples before?
Yeah,
we
all of that
actually
stuff
started?
was done before prior.
Okay.
But again,
To-
that doesn't cover soil stabilization on the construction
I have
site.
questions for Greg about how that was, you know, those soil samples that were done, were they done to any particular standard that we would be able to understand?
Yeah, so Patriot, like Rob said, Patriot Engineering did bores at the beginning of the project. So typically, we locate locations of where parking lots are gonna be, where the building's gonna be, and we did, I think on this project, 9 different bore locations.
Okay.
That just gives you information on soil, information on water levels, things of that nature. That was all done pre-construction. It gives the engineers, structural engineers, information to design footings, foundations.
Did they prepare reports on their testing for that coring?
Yes, there is a geotech engineering report that Patriot
Okay.
issued, yep.
Okay. Was that test actually done to an ASTM standard?
Yes,
Okay.
as far as I know.
Okay, can you provide Rob and us a copy of that report?
Yep,
All
yep,
right.
absolutely.
I'd appreciate that, because those are pre-construction cores, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'd like to see the reports on what they actually had to say, the standards that they used to do that test.
Okay, are you talking the test pre-construction, not
Yeah,
the test for-
pre-construction. We'll get on to the next
Yeah,
one. We'll get on to the roll test here in a minute.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, but yeah, if you've got those test results, I think you should share them, because we're trying to make a decision here on what's got to be, what we have to do, right? So we need to verify that these samples were done appropriately and to the appropriate standards, so that we can understand that we have a true need. If they came up in their soil testing originally and said they didn't believe they would need it, then I would question the preparation of the ground and the roll test that they did. According to the pictures that I see here in their test report, according to what I've learned, and of course I'm dangerous on this, so take this with a grain of salt, okay? But according to what I've learned, because I haven't been able to get a hold of Jeremy Lawler or Jonathan Nail, so I've had to go out and do this on my own. And several places I've learned about the roll test is the ground needs to be somewhat prepared before you do the roll test. And in the pictures that you show here in this report, there doesn't appear to be any pre-rolling done to the site. Was that done? Was it pre-rolled before they did the testing?
Yeah, so yes, it just also depends on what we're doing, if you're filling or cutting. So the south parking lot, for instance, I believe was mostly a cut. So there is no rolling that transpires because you have basically earthly soils that are there.
Yeah.
The building pad, for instance, was put in as a fill that they did compaction reports and lifts as they went up with the building pad.
Well, I'd like for them to clarify then some of the pictures that I see, because there's one picture here on the last page of their report that shows a lot of rutting, but it also shows that the ground was not pre-rolled. I mean, it clearly shows the ground was not pre-rolled prior to any testing that they did there. It looks to me like anytime you would run across virgin ground, you're going to get some deformation simply because it's not compacted. So if you're testing for compaction and you don't prepare the ground for that test, it seems reasonable to me to think that when you do that test, you're going to get deformation simply because it's not compacted. So I'd like to have a little more information from you and from them about how this test was done and how it should have been done. And perhaps maybe we need to revisit that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay, more questions for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you satisfied with the cooperation you're getting from the Westfield Fire Department and everybody concerned with this project?
Yes. Yeah. Chief Rob and the whole team.
Well, I'm sure you guys get down and wrestle in the mud over a few things here and there, but outside of that, it's all comes out pretty good in the end. Good. Now, as far as schedule is concerned, moving forward, you're on schedule now. Do you foresee any headwinds that are coming at us that are going to be a problem to this project?
As of today, I do not see any issues moving forward, but
Okay.
it's
Any
Indiana
support-
weather, so it's Indiana weather, so you never know
Well,
what to expect.
yeah, given that the weather can do that. Now, what about suppliers and supply issues?
There are materials and things that can be long lead items. Most of them we have all taken care of with getting them under a purchase order and getting them released. At one point, we had an issue with the electrical panel. We found an alternative for that, so I think that's not a big issue. Our generator is going to be at the tail end of the project. It's 16-month lead time, which was ordered back in April, I think. So we're looking at 1st of June right now where the generator is scheduled. Hopefully maybe that improves over the next several months, but other than that, no, I think we got everything identified and coming, so.
Okay. Any, okay, I think it pretty much addresses the question that I gave you. Gentlemen, any questions?
Well, just to go back to the soil issue, so will there need to be a fix? And if so, do we have an estimate on the cost? And is that part of the budget, or do we need to begin the discussions to have additional dollars allocated in the future?
So it's not a part of our contract currently. There is preliminary estimate numbers out there. We have to get to a point to identify exactly how much needs to be stabilized before we can really tighten that number up. If you're familiar with stabilization, it's usually done on a unit cost price. The quantity of material that you use factors in what that unit cost price is. So again, the more you stabilize, the better unit cost you get, vice versa. Less you stabilize, the higher the unit cost is going to be. But there is a preliminary number out there just for everybody's sake.
And so that number is not there, from what I understand, there's no contingency in our current project for the fire department. So if that number,
Under Hagerman's contract, no, there's not.
so John, what would be the process if they come back and say we need $60,000 to complete this stabilization, and then there's no contingency in the budget to?
We would have to look at some other sources in the fire department and or other sources, maybe the TIF area, those types of sources. But at this point, I think it's, just like Greg said, I think it's a little early to, let's get real numbers before we start looking at, and possibly, and I don't know, this would be a question for Greg, any savings on the tail end of the project. I don't know how that might factor in either. So I would want to make sure we paint the whole picture.
Well, I'm an optimist too. I
But
would love
yeah,
to
we would-
think that we'll have savings at the end, but given just the state of the world and that we're in, I suspect we won't. But
And again, at that point, we have sources. that we would draw on. And my gut reaction right now would be that we would go to that TIF area.
Okay, so we would probably not have to go to council for additional money or,
I don't think so.
Well, it would certainly probably end up being part
It's
of the
definitely an
2023
RDC.
budget.
Yeah,
I mean,
it would be an
an
RDC
RDC issue?
discussion.
Depend on the source
Okay,
to be used.
because, you know, with the current climate, we would probably want to avoid, you know, going for, additional funds, you know. So,
Agreed, but again, I think it's painting the whole picture.
yep,
The timelines, the generator's a great example. I mean, what other potential operationally, what potential products that would operationally affect the station could also get delayed? And then what do we do there? So again, I would want to try to look at a bigger piece so that when I start projecting where those dollars might come from, I don't overextend that particular economic development area.
what's the, what is still the projected completion date
May 1st.
of
Of
2023?
Yep.
So within 7 months, we'll be paying some kind of bill for soil, is my guess. So I would imagine by December or January, we'll probably have a good sense of what that number is going to be. So is it fair to say that for our last quarterly meeting here, we'll probably have a good update on what that all looks like?
So for timeline on the stabilization, the intent was to get some asphalt binder in this fall. So obviously plants close usually around Thanksgiving. We've been trying to get them scheduled for end of October, preferably just because one, road work will start picking up here, especially with asphalt, because they're all going to be against the clock of trying to get done before winter. So it's hard to get them scheduled. So the intent was to try to get them here at the end of October to start binding, to put asphalt binder down. Obviously, then you got to back that into the soil stabilization. That's all got to be done before that. So
that's the stabilization, that's that white stuff that they put down, or,
It's a concrete lime.
okay,
yeah, so
and that's mixed in with the dirt?
So the Patriot report came back with a recommendation of cement stabilization. So yeah, gray instead of white, I guess. But yes, they till it in 16 inches deep. And they do all that. And then it's got to be regraded, recompacted, obviously, after they till it. Again, proof rolled again. And then we could start paving, stone and pave.
So is it reasonable to expect that a decision needs to be made on this, and the money needs to be found, or at least begin to be found in the next 3 weeks?
Yes,
Okay.
or at least a direction on how to proceed. How about that?
Well, it looks like there's two universes here, or two parallel paths, I shouldn't say universe, but two parallel paths. One is to determine if the test was accurate in the first place. Second is to find the money. So I think we should pursue both paths at this point, if you don't mind.
I also would recommend, and I don't know how that happens, John, but perhaps Chief Gaylor makes it during a comment with city council, but just given what's happened in the past about not being forthright with, information like this, I think that we need to notify them when the time is appropriate, sooner than later, that here's the situation, here's how we're going to solve it, and here's the cost, so that, we don't give someone ammo to come yelling at any of us that we didn't tell them that this was happening. It sounds like the rest of the project expenses have been what we've expected, and we feel like we're gonna finish close to or under what was originally bidded, so, and maybe it won't be as much as, there's some grace within that will cover it, but if not, then better to just let them know. Unless you all disagree, but.
No, I think that's fine. I think that's good. You want to add that to our notes and
I
make sure
definitely
that
think
that
that's a
gets
good idea.
documented on our side.
Can I have your
Yeah,
full name again
absolutely.
for the minutes?
Greg Delagrange.
How do you spell that?
Last name or first name? Last name Delagrange.
Okay.
And then the report, do you want me to send that through John or?
Yeah, if you get to John, John, can you, I know you're busy. I hate to ask you to take on something else. Okay, they're going to either ask you or get it to Rob, and Rob can get it to us, one or the other. It doesn't matter. But do want to have that. Are you still meeting on Tuesday afternoons out at the site, or are you still?
Yep,
Okay,
at
so
the
there's a
site.
meeting this afternoon out there?
Yep,
Okay, and is that a standing meeting every Tuesday?
bi-weekly, but yeah.
Bi-weekly, okay.
Yep.
So, all right, so it's every other week. Okay. Are there any questions you have for us?
I don't think so.
All right, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your time, gentlemen. Okay. Are there any additional business that we should discuss at this point? Just to,
The documents got signed yesterday and,
gonna bring that up.
okay.
Yeah, the documents for the garage, for the loan for the garage were signed yesterday. As far as I know, we had a large group of people out there, and I think they were all signed. I haven't heard anything about any missing signatures or
As I
any
understand
additional
it-
discussion that we should be involved
As
in.
I understand it, Catherine was very happy with the way it played out. Rachel did a great job of getting it all set up, and it is complete.
Yeah, well, with the exception of some of the red lines that they had on the agreement between the RDC and us, that Joe had some questions about, I think it was pretty much all said and done for all the rest of the documents in the first place. They were pretty well all said and done. The things that we're lacking are the actual loan detail documents, and Catherine said that she would get those to us. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be after closing, post-closing, because we're not close on, but she said she would get us a copy of those documents. Okay.
They're getting pretty close to breaking ground on that project, right? I would think.
Have not talked with them. Money will, the closing, what, next 27th? That's correct, the 27th? Yes. So that project will be kicking off, and we'll be adding that to our meeting each month. Our next quarterly meeting will be December, I believe, the 13th. Is that correct, gentlemen?
Yeah, can I ask a question just about the Union Square project?
Absolutely.
John, who's obviously, like with the fire department, we have chief here answering those questions. Is Old Town going to be the representative? Will there be a person within the city who will be the city representative at these meetings?
I will have to follow up on that, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, I like you, I would think Old Town, but it might not be a bad idea to have John Nail. I just don't want to dedicate his time if it's
Sure.
not necessary.
Yeah.
So let me follow up on that for you.
Sure.
And for our December meeting has been pre-scheduled for December the 13th, 10 o'clock here in City Hall. Add the parking garage as line items for the same kind of things that we discuss here to kind of move the stake forward to make sure, at least in the first brief discussion we'll have on it, will be to cover where we are with the loan and anticipated groundbreaking preparations.
I want to say, having looked into city building corporations in Indiana, how impressed I am with you guys. We're much more involved than most building corporation boards in this sort of a project, and I'm proud to be a member of this group. So,
Oh, gee. Thank you. Thanks.
we are
We're
way
glad-
more.
We're glad to have you.
We are way more involved than most building corporations.
If there is any, well, we try to be efficient too, so if
We
there,
might like that up here. I don't know that they love that, but that's good to know.
I probably look like a stoplight right now, but that's fine. If there's any other business that we need to discuss? John? No? Okay,
I have none.
all right. In that case, I will say that the building corporation is adjourned at 10:25.